station stormwater, and then worked, shortly with the FDOT as assistant administrator for the infrastructure development. In 2009, she was appointed as the transportation manager, and later in 2013 as a director for transportation stormwater department. And then lately in 2020, February 2020, she appointed by Mayor City of Tampa as the infrastructure and the mobility administrator. And she's a well-known transition leader in our area as well as nationwide. And also Jean is very supportive to university research. And many of his office under her leadership work closely with the Cutter and also other faculty members from other disciplines. And for myself, I fortunately to work with Jean and also her colleague on shared mobility, on the resilient cities for the city of Tampa. And Jean is currently serving on the advisory board of Cutter. And also Jean has been very supportive to WTS, and she always attends the event organized by WTS. So without further ado, we're so glad to have you here, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zhang. It's really a pleasure to be here with everyone today. Thank you for inviting me to share a little bit about what's happening here in the city of Tampa. Just for all of our students who have tuned in today, again, my name is Jean Duncan, and my position here at the city of Tampa is the administrator for infrastructure and mobility. So as you can imagine, that covers a lot of different areas. And I have to say, any of you that are majoring in civil engineering, get ready for a great, exciting career. There's a lot going on, a lot of variety, a lot of different pathways you can choose to go down in terms of your interests. So you're in a very good place with a great profession ahead of you. And I thank you for being interested in this profession, because it's a very honorable profession, and we want more people that are really wanting to help make our world a better place to live in to be entering this profession. So the general topic that was floated out for conversation today was moving Florida forward, infrastructure innovations and beyond. And so from that bigger theme, I wanted to share a little bit of information with you today about what in Tampa, what we call transforming Tampa's tomorrow. And under our current mayor, Mayor Castor, she's actually in this picture on the screen there with the blue hat on, and I'm just to her right. She's set some strategic goals for us to follow under her administration, and we refer to those as transforming Tampa's tomorrow. And we plan to do that through resiliency, sustainability, and being creative with all the resources we have to use. Because you can imagine money always comes into the equation in terms of how we want to get things done. So we have to be very frugal and very creative with the resources we have. And the public is trusting us to spend those dollars in the best way that we can. We take that task very seriously. So if I could go to the next slide. Here's sort of the key things I want to speak about today a little bit. First, I want to share a little bit about what we call our Tampa Moves plan. That's going to be our blueprint for re-establishing how we want to invest in our transportation network. And we always want to do that in very close coordination with our land use. So I'll speak a little bit about that. I want to also talk about Vision Zero. And if any of you have not heard about Vision Zero, this will be a great chance for me to tell you a little bit more about that. It's a very important philosophy and approach to safety in our roadways that I want everyone to be familiar with. Sustainability and resilience is now baked into everything we do these days. Many of you have probably heard about sea level rise and climate change. All these things are hard to quantify at this point in time. There's a lot of different sciences out there and different opinions. But the bottom line is whatever is going to become before us in our future, we want to have the most sustainable and resilient infrastructure and communication and everything that we can put in place to be ready for what the future may bring to us. So I'll speak a little bit about that, and also the things we're doing to make our city more sustainable and resilient. And one way we're doing that is through renewing the infrastructure we have. If our city has a good solid foundation upon which to build on, people can have a good quality of life, or people want to move to our area and invest and create jobs. So it's all a good thing. And whatever time I have left, I'll share some other things that we have going on here in the city. So next slide. A little bit about our moves plan. You know, planning is very important to those of us here at the city. If you don't have a good plan, a good strategy, then you're not really sure where you're going to end up, where you're going. So we've taken our mobility master plan and we're revisiting that. And one key component in doing that is to hear from the public. You know, we're stewards of the public. We're considered public servants. And so we want to hear what the public has to say about what they believe they would like to see happen in their neighborhoods and in their city. So we're engaging with the public and we're working to outline what our objectives are over the next 30 years. That's our planning horizon. And we're going to be looking at updating standards and also making sure that we are integrating other modes of travel. You know, we can't just depend on cars and walking. We've got to have more variety, more choices for people. And we want to have an equitable approach to things. Not everyone can afford a car. Not everyone is able to ride a scooter. Not everyone is able to walk down the street as far as they'd like. So equity is also a big important component of how we're looking at things. So what's next with this plan? We're going to take this broader blueprint that we're working on, and we're going to drill down a little bit further and come up with specific design standards. In this particular plan, we want to look at our streets. We have a hierarchy of streets, and we need to work on that further. And we've got the interstate systems. We've got collector and arterial roads, such as Dale Mabry. I'm sure many of you have heard of that roadway, Bush Boulevard. And we've got our residential streets, but there's less traffic and possibly more people walking, biking, children playing. So we want to have standards to have different levels of street activity, but in every case, we want those roadways to be as safe for all users of the roadway. And we're also going to use this blueprint to identify gaps that we have in our network. We want our network to be connected and to not have any gaps where there's opportunity or missing opportunities for people to get about where they want to go. And we're going to start looking at prioritizing our projects over the next 30 years, because if we have a good priority plan, then we can make those investments smartly and use our resources to the best we can. So next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about Vision Zero. I'm sure many of you have seen this kind of situation where, for example, you have a construction project, they put detour signs up to reroute the traffic, but they'll close a sidewalk and don't really care about where the pedestrians go. Pedestrians seem to take a back seat to the vehicles on our roadways, and that's a very unsafe situation. We want to change that. So next slide, please. I just want to put this definition up there so everyone can be understanding what Vision Zero is. It's basically setting the goal to eliminate all roadway fatalities and severe injuries on our roads while increasing safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. So it's setting the bar very high of saying we don't want any fatalities, we don't want any serious injuries on our roadways. And that may seem unattainable, but we all know if you don't set your goals high, you're not going to reach to a high level. And so that's what we're doing when we say we want to aspire to having a Vision Zero city. And our mayor made a proclamation some months ago that we are a Vision Zero city. And that means we've set that bar very high. And we're going to do everything we can to make things as safe as possible for everyone. So I'll give you some examples of that. Next slide, please. If we don't make these kind of changes, we're going to continue to see statistics like you're seeing on the screen here. On average, about 44 people in our area are killed every year, and almost 300 people are severely injured. There's many lesser injuries that are not shown on these statistics. And so if you can imagine how many people are out on the streets every day, these numbers are just unacceptable. We want to reduce those numbers, because even one person getting killed, if that person is a member of your family, clearly that's one too many people that are having an injury or fatality on the roadway. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of comparison here. Traditionally, when roads were designed, there was just an assumption, well, of course, there's going to be bad things that happen on the road. That's just the way it is. Well, we don't agree with that anymore. We're saying, no, we're going to have a goal of no loss of life. Loss of life is not acceptable, and there's things we can do to prevent it. Back in the old days, they focus on where the crashes were. Well, this intersection has all the crashes, so we'll do a project there. Or there's a lot of crashes here, so that's the justification for doing a project. We've changed that philosophy, and now we're saying we want to focus on where those deadly and life-altering injury crashes are, and then make changes so that those are not occurring anymore. Again, traditionally, it was viewed that everyone has a personal responsibility as they move about in the right of way. Well, that is true. However, nowadays we view that as there's a shared responsibility, and we can do that, have a shared responsibility through having a safe system that prioritizes our most vulnerable users that are out there on the right of way. And just one last comment about this slide. Back in the day, it was, well, we need to perfect human behavior. If the humans would behave properly, we wouldn't have these accidents. Well, now we know that that is not possible. People are going to make mistakes, even if they're unintended. And so we've got to design our roadways anticipating that people are going to make mistakes. So just a few examples of how we are taking a new approach to how we are designing our roadways and being more comprehensive as we look to make things as safe as possible for everyone. Next slide, please. So one way that we are, again, applying this Vision Zero approach is we're taking what's called a safe system approach. And this is a much more integrated approach than we had in the past. And it's basically looking at people, streets, speeds, vehicles, and post-crash care, and working those things together comprehensively as we make our decisions about how to upgrade and improve our roadway system. Next slide, please. So here's some examples of things we're doing to apply Vision Zero in the roadways. And we try to be as creative as possible. So in this example, you can see there on the left, the tall lady with the blonde hair, that's actually the mayor of the city of Tampa, Mayor Castor. And this is a program we call Crosswalks to Classrooms. And what we've been doing is going and working with students and the principal of different elementary schools, coming up with a theme for that particular school. And then we pick that main crosswalk to the school campus and do a painting in that crosswalk, involve the students in the activity of that day. And then we have a ribbon cutting where everyone gets to use the crosswalk. And so part of that is educating the students about road safety. Part of that is engaging with the school community and letting them get to know their city leaders in a better way. And it's also, once all that's said and done, as cars travel about this area, they're more alert and aware that there's activity going on here, pedestrian activity, and it creates a safer condition around the school. Next slide, please. Another creative example that we're using is to do what we call bulb outs, which is extending the curb so that the pedestrians have a narrower width across the roadway. And we're also doing some painted medians, again, to not only add some aesthetic appeal, but to draw the driver's attention to certain areas of the roadway, which creates traffic calming. So we can reduce speeds and calm traffic. We can do that in a way that doesn't create congestion, but it also creates a safer condition for pedestrians and bicyclists as they're navigating around the right-of-way with the vehicles. Next slide. Another program that we have here in the city of Tampa, again, we're always trying to repurpose what we have. We've got a lot of roadways that were designed decades ago where the car was the main interest, and that's how the roadways were designed to serve the vehicles. So we're repurposing those spaces and putting in accommodations for bicyclists to the best extent that we can. We're trying to separate that space from the travel lanes of the cars. And you can see that picture on the left. If you see that green striping when you're driving, that's an indicator that there's bicycle activity on drawing the driver's attention and make sure that those bicyclists are viewed by the driver and creating a safer condition. On the right-hand side there, you see the stop sign. We have what we call traffic warrants for different signs and signals that we use in the system. And we've realized through lots of data and research that a lot of our intersections that are either not stop conditioned or have a two-way stop can be better served by having a four-way stop, which ensures that each direction in that intersection, the drivers are pausing and giving the right of way to others if they need to, and creating a safer condition in that intersection. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk a little bit about sustainability and resiliency. Our mayor hired our very first sustainability and resiliency officer, and his job is to come in and make sure that we have a good blueprint to follow for how we're going to make our city more resilient and sustainable, and making sure all of these new policies and goals are weaved into the work we're doing every day. So in that effort, the city team worked on a resilient Tampa plan. And this is our roadmap for how we're going to make our projects more resilient and ensure that our city has a very good infrastructure backbone now and going forward into the future. And so I'll share a little bit about some of the components of that plan and some examples with the next slide here. Lots of things we're doing to be more sustainable and resilient. One thing that was done several years ago with Dr. Zhang's assistance and the team with Cutter, we formed what's called the Smart City Alliance, because we've realized that if we can work collaboratively with the cities and counties within the Tampa Bay area here, we can make decisions together that are going to create a seamless network. And this started with our signal system. We wanted to make sure as each area was investing in their traffic signal system, that system was being built seamlessly, so as you go from one city to one county to another city, you can't tell the difference. It's all working together. So there's many things we've been working on together with the other cities and counties in our area to ensure we're making smart investments for our whole region. Next slide, please. Another thing that we're doing is trying to bring along more choices. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. So one way to do that is have other choices for getting around besides just driving and walking. So we've had stand-up scooters in the downtown areas and beyond for a couple years, and we're going to be expanding that program very soon to have some other options for scooters, sit-down scooters, ADA accessible scooters, and multi-rider scooters. So you'll see those coming out here in the next few months. I don't know how many of you get out off the campus, but I encourage you to try to get out and explore your community more as best you can, and see some of the things that are going on. We want to permeate these things out to all parts of our city. We often start in the downtown because that's where we have a more concentration of but we want to see these programs go out and beyond throughout the whole city so everyone has an opportunity to have choices. Again, we're always trying to be equitable and fair in anything we do to make sure everyone has an opportunity to enjoy the different choices we're providing. Next slide, please. Just another picture here of the infrastructure that goes along with some of these mode choices. We're going to start being creative with different bicycle racks and different kiosks where these different types of scooters could be stored. So when we do this, we also try to add traffic calming and try to add aesthetics anytime we put these things up so that they have those enhancements as well in the right of way. Next slide. Want to talk a little bit about resiliency in terms of stormwater. Unfortunately, this is here in the city of Tampa. We have a lot of flooding. A lot of it tends to be in certain parts of our city. I believe these pictures were actually in South Tampa. And so we're doing some smart approaches to make our city more sustainable. Even if we have areas that are not low lying, we also have those hurricanes that come every summer that can create flooding events. Next slide. So on the stormwater front, we are building into many of our projects what we call green infrastructure. Green infrastructure is basically environmentally friendly infrastructure that not only helps with the flooding component, but it also adds opportunity for water quality as runoff travels over the roadway and ends up in the bay. So an example of that is pervious pavers. We put these in locations such as parking lots, where instead of that runoff sheet flowing over the parking lot, picking up all those oils from the vehicles and then going into the bay, it first is able to permeate through the ground, which causes a natural filtration. And then by the time it gets to that water body, it's a cleaner condition. So we do these in locations where we're able to do that. Sometimes there's a high groundwater level, we can't do it, but again, we're making those in wherever we can when we find the opportunities. Another smart approach we're taking for sustainability and resiliency is our smart streetlight program. We've been working with TECO on this to put sensors in our streetlights that can collect data for us that can be very helpful. That data can help with traffic management. It can help with flood detection. It can also help with gunshot detection. So again, any opportunity we can get more data and then use that data to help make good decisions, that's another thing we're doing, again, to be more sustainable and more resilient. Next slide, please. A little bit about our traffic management system. That picture on the left is actually our City of Tampa Traffic Management Center. We have so many innovations going on this front. We have a team that operates the elevated roadway, the Selman roadway. Next slide, please. I just wanted to also squeeze in a little bit of information about our PIPES program. Our PIPES program is the largest infrastructure investment the city has ever made. And this is a program where we are expanding and replacing aging infrastructure throughout the city. We have pipes that are over 100 years old in some cases, and we've made an investment to not only upgrade that infrastructure, but again, add as much green components as we possibly can, so we have an environmentally friendly system. Next slide, please. Just a little more information about that program. We've got about 500 miles of pipe that need to be replaced over the next 20 years. Our goal is to do at least 20 miles of pipe per year. We're on a good track for that. This picture is actually our David L. Tippin water treatment facility. And we have a master plan that we are working on to improve many components of this water plant. We've got to keep this plant up and running, sustainable. We've got to keep it up with the current technology, because this is the plant that treats all of the water that we all drink in our area. So very important to make sure that our infrastructure is working properly and serving everyone and providing safe drinking water. Next slide, please. Just another component of this, I wanted to mention this because, again, for all you civil engineers that are listening, there's a lot of edges to civil engineering, and this particular pilot program we have is really going to interest any of you that are interested in the chemical side of water resources. We're using testing a new technology called the 6 suspended ion exchange process that we actually copied from the country of the Netherlands. They started using it, and we were very interested and thought we'd try it here in Tampa. And it's a way to take out some of those bad chemicals that are in the water and remove them in a very safe and environmentally sensitive way. So we're real excited to have this project occurring here in the city of Tampa. the regional Tampa Bay Water agency is also interested in getting information from us as we work through this pilot program. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to kind of end with this particular slide. This is our West River District project. We call it the Build Grant Project because we got a $24 million grant from the federal government for this project. And it has a little bit of everything in it that you'll see when you go from studying about engineering to actually practicing engineering. This particular project is going to have excessive public engagement because it's integrated with so many of our neighborhoods and businesses. Clearly, money is on the forefront because we've got to make sure we stay within our budget as we build this project. We're going to be looking at the environment as we work through this project, through the mobility aspect of things. We want to connect this river walk so that we can have that Western experience, just as we have on the eastern side of the river. If any of you have not been downtown lately, I encourage you to take a trip down to our river walk and see how beautiful it is during the day or the evening. You can walk along the water, and there's different venues as you go from one end to the other. So really excited about this project. It's just got a lot of variety to it. It's going to be transformative in terms of the experience people can have walking along the west side of the river. It's going to create more connectivity for that side of our city. And we're really pleased that we were able to win this grant from the federal government to get this project started. And Brandy, who you may have, some of you mentioned, got to meet when this seminar got underway, she's going to be our co-manager on it. So we're really excited about it. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to leave some time for questions and answers. Because I'm hoping some of our students have some interest in what's going on here in the city. And I also just wanted to let everyone know that we expect all of you to graduate and stay right here in Tampa. We need great young minds to help us do all this work. And so I encourage you to think about staying in Tampa when you graduate. It's a great city to live in. It's one of the quickest growing cities in the United States. A lot to offer here, so I hope I can encourage you all to stick around and help us do all the great work that we need to do to make our city even better. And with that, I'll hand it back to Dr. Zhang if you want to open up for any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Oh, I heard it. I don't know where the echo comes from. So now I think we'll open floor to the questions. You are more than welcome to unmute yourself and deliver the question. Or if you prefer, you can put the question in the meeting chat and I will check the meeting chat and address the question to Jean. So maybe I can start from one question which I'm not familiar with. So it was very excited to have this federal grant to support the West River. So how hard it is to compete for that type of federal grant?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dr. Zhang. It's very hard to compete. You know, the offerings that the federal government provides for nationally for these grants, there's a lot of competition, and you really need to show why your project is so unique and so different and so deserving of the funding. So we do very well with going after funding, because that's really the only way that we get to do what we would like to do, because we have such limited resources that are dedicated to transportation. So that's one thing that when I was a student, I didn't realize was so important when I started working on projects, was the funding and also the communication with the public and with stakeholders. Those are things I never realized were part of getting a project done. But funding and collaboration with stakeholders are the two things that you really have to do properly in order to have a successful project.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang, and thank you, Ms. Duncan, for your presentation. So to follow up with that question, I'm glad that the Hillsborough County Board of Commissioners unanimously approved the extension of the West River Walk, right? So would that be a part of that grant as well?
Yes. Are you talking about the TPO?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, exactly. We work with that agency to get. They're sort of an arm of the federal government in a way. That we work with them to prioritize federal funding in our county. So yes, they also are supportive of this project. And that's another thing I didn't realize as a student was there's so many transportation agencies out there, and the same is for any discipline that you go in. There's multiple agencies you have to work with, not only at the local, state, and federal level, but within those levels, there's different agencies that have different responsibilities for whatever discipline that you're working in. So another thing for our students to get more familiar with, because this is how we get things done, is working with these different agencies and collaborating and working on funding. So good question, Trang, and good to hear your voice. I haven't seen you lately.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we have quite a lot of questions in the meeting chat, and the first one coming from Han Dong Yao. He says, it seems new technologies will not be widely deployed anytime soon. On the other hand, there are many problems in the existing transportation system that seem to be receive less attention. As transportation engineers, shall we focus more on problems in the existing transportation systems or those on emerging technologies?
Wow, that's a great question.
That's a big
we do is all about balance. So we have to work with what we have, which is our existing system. But as we're doing that, we also are always looking ahead as well. And we want to make investments with that futuristic look as much as possible. And it's very difficult because one reason we formed the Smart City Alliance that I mentioned was because we're all struggling with how things are changing so quickly. It's the Internet of Things now, of course, IoT. So we're all trying to learn and make decisions on the fly. And we've found that if we can collaborate and do that together, that's the best scenario that we can have. So it's a little bit of both. That's kind of my short answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean. One question from Ken Sides says, would you please tell us about the very interesting 34th Street Roundabout Corridor Engineering Transportation Project?
Yes, I'd love to do that, Ken. Thank you for the question. We have a project in the part of town we call East Tampa. It's just a little bit east of Ybor City. And we have a project where we put in 3 roundabouts. These are 1-lane roundabouts, and we are huge supporters of roundabouts. So if any of you have been to Europe or more familiar with them than we are here in the States, but you're going to see more and more of them coming to the United States. And it's a very safe way to keep traffic flowing, very safe. You know, you can have a traffic signal, but people run red lights all the time, unfortunately. When they run those red lights, they cause severe accidents. You really can't run a roundabout. You can't run through it. So it slows traffic down, but it keeps traffic flowing. And so we've put 3 roundabouts on that particular project, put in bike lane accommodations, upgraded the street lights. And the roundabouts also add that aesthetic appeal where there could be some artwork in the middle or some other recognition that identifies that neighborhood. And again, they're more environmentally friendly with, you know, having a grassed area versus asphalt. They cut down on gas emissions. So very sustainable, resilient way to create a calm and safe traffic system. So thank you for the question, Ken.
And Jean, we do have students in the classroom and they have questions. So I'm going to switch between the online platform and also in the classroom. So I know, Christina, you are in the classroom, right? So you either can let the student to ask or you can deliver the question. Or is Saeed in the classroom?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're all here.
Okay, yeah.
And okay, thank you very much.
I want to ask some question about the drainage improvement. And you know that I pay attention to that the water on the pavement could cause many problems and will damage the property of the citizen. And do you have some kind of idea about the improvement of the system? And do you have some kind of real-time and method to monitor the water flow? And do you want to create some database based on the GIS and to identify and which place have the problem of the drainage problem? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for the question. So yes, we have a lot of data, GIS-based data on those flood-prone locations throughout the whole city. And we also we're big on master plans here at the city of Tampa. I'm a big believer in having a good plan. We have a master plan for our stormwater improvements citywide, where we prioritize those locations. Again, we want to always spread the love. We want to have projects throughout our whole city and not just concentrate on one area. But we have a prioritization plan for putting in stormwater improvements throughout the whole city. And again, we're building green infrastructure as much as possible into those projects so that we can have a sustainable, environmentally friendly, and resilient system. So we're real excited about our stormwater program. Again, if you get out and about and drive around the city, you probably see a lot of construction going on. And even though that's unfortunate, that's inconvenient sometimes, it's just showing that there's a lot of things going on to make our infrastructure and our transportation network better. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, any other questions from the classroom?
I can go next if that's okay.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, go next, then we can switch back to the online.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I feel like Tampa is growing fast, but you know, compared to other cities, the public transportation system I think is not as good as it could be. Like, for example, if you want to go from USF to downtown area, if you go with your own car, it would take like around 20-25 minutes, but with bus, it would take around 50 minutes up to 1 hour. So I just want to know what are the plans for the future public transportation system in Tampa?
That's a really great question. Actually, our public transportation system is, interestingly, in this city, it's not part of the city of Tampa direct responsibility. It's, of course, indirect. There's another agency that manages our bus system. It's called the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Authority. It's HART, and they're responsible for the bus network within our city. The problem we have with that bus network is we don't have adequate funding to have the kind of public transportation that many of us feel that we need, and many of the people that move here from other areas that have public transit believe our city should have. There was a recent sales tax increase that would have provided dedicated funding to enhance that public transit system. However, there was some legal disputes over that, and it's not in place right now. But until there's again, I mentioned at the beginning, funding and stakeholder collaboration, community engagement, these things all can make or break your project. And in this case, until we have a bigger dedicated fund source for our bus system, it's not going to get much better than it is right now. So here in the city of Tampa, you know, we can't solve all problems, but the things we can control, we try to solve them as best we can. And so what we're doing is just trying to make more accommodation, more opportunities for other modes such as the scooters, making bike infrastructure safer, and you know, expanding that as much as we can, making safer pedestrian options. So we do have one project on the transit front, which is the streetcar. We're looking to extend that north to where it ends right now, and we're going to be able to capture a lot of riders in that area. So people could actually use that to get to work, get to different venues in the evening. So we have that going on, which will help. But the bigger system really needs to have more funding if it's going to ever change from what it is now. So the more the public starts to demand these changes, the more changes we'll see. So feel free to speak out on that if that's something that you believe in that we should have, because the more we can hear about what people want, the better we can react and try to make it happen.
Thanks, Jean. So I saw Dr. Chapin raised his hand for a while, so I'll let Dr. Chapin ask the question, then I will go to the meeting chat, and then I will let other people to ask the question. So Dr. Lee?
Thank you. Jane, thank you so much for your enlightening presentation and the discussion. You know, this actually started from the Carter Advisory Board initiative of engaging and interacting with students, and like we have a number of great people from Carter Advisory Board like Jane who plan to give us presentations, and this is the beginning of the session, and you set a very good example and a start. And I just wonder, I think Christina already mentioned something that I want to ask. You know, since I mean a lot of the audience are graduate or undergraduate students, and they have wonders and questions about their future and a career. Could you just introduce a bit about the career opportunities ranging from interns or long-term job positions or within the city of Tampa, or from the transportation in general, and or it could be related to the wonderful projects and like the initiatives you just presented in the talk. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It's good to see you again. There's so many opportunities right now for civil engineers. And again, you can choose your pathway, whether you want to be academic, whether you want to work for government, whether you want to work for a private consultant. But there's many opportunities on all of those fronts for entering into the engineering profession. And I highly encourage you to get involved in your profession. Joining professional societies such as FTSS and ITE are very helpful because, as you've probably heard over time, it's a lot of times it's who you know. So the more connected you could be with opportunities, with what's going on with your profession, the better chance you have to get into the field that you're interested in and a field that you're going to enjoy. And so I encourage you to network, to try to have as many experiences as you can as a student, because when you graduate, you know, it's difficult for employers to pick out of many applications who really has the it factor. So if you've got other things besides your studies that you've done to show that you've tried to get involved in the profession, that's going to give you a little bit of a leg up on others that are also competing for the same job. But I can tell you, you're looking forward to a very exciting career. There's just so many areas that you can get involved in, whatever your interest may be, so many choices. And I'm just so excited that we've got so many great students that will be graduating from USF. I'm also a USF graduate myself. I won't tell you what year, though. It's been a while. But yes, I just, again, encourage you to get involved in the profession and get some experiences to go along with your great education. And you know, anyone that wants any more particular details, you can certainly get my information from Dr. Zhang, and I'd be happy to try to help you out.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Jean. And also, as Jean mentioned, you know, involved into the professional organizations could be one good way of networking. And please consider ITE, WTS. You know, we have 2 presidents at our campus, and hope students will join our student chapters. So, Daniel, I think I will go to ask one question from the meeting chat, then I will get back to you, okay? So there's one question from Christina Acosta. He says, hi, Jean, great presentation. Regarding smart street lights, I read that Paris is using this kind of tech to detect and enforce noise ordinances. For instance, loud cars and motorcycles. Is your vision that our system will be used for this way as well?
Hey, Christina, thanks for joining in today, and thank you for the question. That is on our radar. We don't have that actually in play yet, but to the extent that we can use those sensors for as many possibilities that we can come up with, we're definitely interested in that. So I'd be glad to look further into the reference you made, because that is one item on our radar, but we are a little further along with some of the other ones. So, but thank you for the question, and thanks for joining today.
All right, great. So next would be Danielle Joyce. Would you like to unmute and ask the question?
Hey, Jean. Thanks so much for your time and support today to the Tampa Bay WTS chapter. And I must report to each of you on the phone that you, Jean, have generated what appears to be the largest meeting attendance this year for our chapter. So thank you so much again. It means a lot to us, and it's just a testament to your leadership in the Tampa Bay area. And so, you know, I can never resist the opportunity to ask a question. So what do you identify the single biggest challenge to your staff as a direct result of the pandemic, and how has the city adapted to this challenge?
I guess for me, I would say that the biggest challenge has been that lack of connectivity. I love that we have the Teams or Zoom option, such as we're having today, but my preference would have been in the classroom, which I've done before, and interacting face-to-face with the group. And so we've lost a little bit of our edge by being separated in this way. And I think if there's a mix of it, it's fine. But if it's all, virtual, we start to lose some of the nuances and details that we don't get virtually. So even though our production has maintained, just that separation factor has been, we felt it. But we're going to get past it. This is going to be in the past, hopefully sooner rather than later, and we'll get back to where we were. But all in all, I think we're very blessed that things couldn't, they weren't any worse than what they were. We've had people that have had struggles, of course, and issues, but generally speaking, as far as the city of Tampa, we've held on pretty well and maintained, considering all the bad things that have come out of this pandemic. So, but thank you for asking. And I just want to say for Danielle, if you want to talk about being connected, this young lady is the epitome of that. She's involved in so many different societies. She's very engaged, and she is really an example of how you can really make the most of your career and get the best experience by getting involved in different things. So thanks for all that you do, Danielle. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jean.
All right, thank you both, Jean and Danielle. And by the way, Danielle is the vice president of the WTS Tampa Bay chapter. Okay, so I'll ask one question from the meeting chat first, and then go back to the list who raised the hand. There's one question from Ed Pons, says, good afternoon, Jean. Would you be able to elaborate on how the city wishes to engage private sector investments, like incentivize parking?
That's a great question, Ed. Thank you. Yes, those things always get tricky when we're, working on the private side of things. We don't have a plan at this time for incentivizing parking, but we're always looking at ways that we can create behavior changes through fee changes, for example. So for one example on the parking front is, we have a problem in the downtown area where people just want to park on the street because they feel like it's more convenient to get to their building. But then we have these very expensive parking garages that cost a lot of money to maintain, and the parking is more expensive there. So of course people don't want to go to the parking garage. It's more expensive and less convenient. So we need to change those fee structures where the fees are higher, where we want people to not necessarily pick first, and lower where we'd like them to choose first. So very interesting how money can plays into people's decision making and how we can use that to gently sort of change some choices people are making, which again is going to help the overall functioning of the system. So thanks for the question, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. All right, so Sean Barodian, thank you for the waiting, and you will be next to ask the question.
Hey, Jean, on the topic of the offer transportation sales tax, do you know what's going to be done with the hundreds of millions of dollars that's already been collected? And then also, are you all exploring any other innovative funding strategies for these much needed transportation improvements?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly am not sure what will become of the many millions of dollars that was collected under the sales tax. There's still, legal proceedings going on that'll make those final decisions. I would hope that if it's not possible to return everyone's dollars to their pocket, which would be quite difficult to do, that at least the intent of the funds could go with what they were intended for by the voters, which is to improve the transportation system. And I would hope that they would just get scooped up by the state for some other, port project or something. But that remains to be seen. In the meantime, we're just continuing to be as creative as we can with the resources we have. We take every opportunity. We've got some what's called ARPA funds, which came out of the federal government through the pandemic. We're trying to maximize the use of those funds. We go after grants, as you saw with that West River Development Project. So we just continue to be as creative as we can, collaborate on projects together with other agencies. And at some point, the demand of doing better with our transportation network will become so loud that something will happen again that will bring some more attention to that from a financial perspective. So we just stay positive.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions? I finished the list in the meeting chat, and I do not see any hands raised. So that means we're good, and we're also very good at the timing. Jean, I want to thank you again for being here. Really appreciate your presentation and also, the discussion. Thank you so much. Now, before we end today's seminar, I just want to have a couple of announcements. I want to recall what I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the seminar is that WTS Tampa Bay chapter is calling for nomination and self-nomination for treasurer and membership chair. So if you're interested, please let us know. Send an email to me or to wtstampa@gmail.com. And for the coming Friday, we invited Professor Oliver Gao from Cornell University talking about urban mobility, infrastructure, and health. And the different thing is that we will not use the Microsoft Teams link for the coming Friday, but we'll use the Zoom link. And you will get a notification, and please register before the starting of the seminar for getting the link for attending the seminar. Okay, so this is slightly different. And again, I want to thank everybody for being here and thank our speaker. I look forward to see you around, and thank everybody, and see most of you next Friday. Bye-bye, Jean.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend.